Hello. Hello. It's Belen Diaz, and this is the E-volve show. And today we're going to be talking about your feminine power. And for that reason, we have brought a very powerful woman, and her name is Anabel Vizcarra. Anabel Vizcarra is an embodiment mentor and womb shaman. She teaches women how to awaken and embody their wise and wild feminine wisdom. Hi, Annabelle. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to share this space with you.
Yeah, it is a pleasure. And I appreciate your time and that you jump in to come to the video series. I think it's going to be very valuable for all the women who are watching today.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for the invitation and hi to everyone. And obviously thank you for creating this, where women can come and get more in touch with themselves. So thank you.
Yeah. And I think all of you guys are going to love this conversation today. Why don't you start telling us a little bit about you and what you do in your business?
Okay, so my name's Anabel Vizcarra, and I've actually been on my journey for quite some time. I began through Ayurveda, and that is a Hindu holistic medicine system. And then that eventually led me into womb shamanism. So I studied and taught for a mystery school around shadow work and the divine feminine rising and a lot of ancient womb religions that existed on the planet. Through that, I also studied with teachers like Bruce Lipton, just different, and also Richard Rudd, who brought the gene key transmission into the planet. So I have all these different modalities, that are now synthesized into what is my work with women, which is reconnecting them to their authentic being and essence, which is for me the key in feminine leadership in the world and how we show up, embracing that power. So
Yeah, that's
yeah, so
so
that's
interesting because for sure I'm not that familiar with this subject. So I think it's very, like, I'm very curious about it. So,
beautiful.
Annabelle, I found something on your website that it say, what is embodiment and womb awakening? Like, would you like to explain us a little bit?
Yeah. So, well, womb awakening really is the framework that I use to invite us into an embodiment journey, and what that means is really, we live in a society that is mostly disconnected from science and spirituality or religion, right? And that's how we've functioned for a long time. For me, the embodiment path really invites us to remember that we are an aspect of the planet, that we are interconnected, and also to remember that we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. So, how do we live that spirituality in our everyday lives? Not just on Sunday, not just, when we're feeling bad and then we pray, but rather how do we as women, and because I really feel women are the key to anchoring this on the planet, is how do we return to being that core of the home that teaches and walks and speaks from a place of spirituality, but also in the world. So it's we work different in womb awakening. I love using, as I said, I studied with womb shamanism, which basically what it means is the return of the feminine principle into creation. So as we have become more independent, we have forgotten that nature works in an ecology. It's not independent. Every the ecosystem depends on one thing and the other to work together. And us, we have forgotten that art or that beauty. And so through womb awakening, I invite women to go back into their body. So kind of, we've been functioning from our heads and in the mental plane. And the invitation is to return to the bodies, embrace emotion, embrace our intuition, and embrace the experience and the traumas and the pain that has happened for us, but that have also have gifts for us. So when we can make room for what was the lesson, what was the gift, what was it showing me about myself, rather than forgetting it or getting rid of it, then we can start to live a more wholesome life where, we can express who we truly are, not who we have been conditioned or taught, even culturally or in society, but really to awaken, like, what is my purpose as a woman living on the planet right now? What is my purpose, of having these desires and these dreams that I don't do anything about because I don't think that I deserve them, or that I want them. So womb awakening is really a remembering journey, because we already know all this, we have just forgotten. So it is a remembering of our true light, the light that is connected to a divine intelligence. And when we connect to that light, we are able to co-create into the physical plane our dreams, our desires, our missions, our purpose, and our homes. So that's in a nutshell a little bit of what it is.
Well, it is amazing because, yeah, it's what you say. It's more like connecting to your body and to your inside to make sure like everything else are aligned with what you want. So it comes to my mind a question: does the women that you work with, are they all very spiritual, or there is people who are like, I've never heard about this, and what is their experience about it?
Yeah, so I work with women. It's not necessarily that they are spiritual. It's more that they are looking for something to give their lives meaning. So whether we're spiritual or not, we all have a longing to express ourselves in the world to the our max, our genius, right? So some of the women that I work with is, women who are kind of they've already had all the success, then, but they still feel that there's something missing, or they're constantly landing in toxic relationships, or they have everything and yet they still feel they're not good enough. So it can look, the importance of the work is that we take what is our unique experience and challenges, because they're unique to everyone. Mm-hmm. Even though they may sound the same, we all experience them differently. And to start to get curious, like you said at the beginning of the call, of what is there? What is there? Is this how I'm supposed to feel all my life? Or is this what I work so hard for, to not even go home and have inner peace? Because whether we are, consider ourselves or label ourselves as spiritual or not, we all long for inner peace. We all long to give the best of who we are and to express that. So yeah. Yes and no.
Yeah, like it's open for everybody, and it's
Absolutely.
like also it's like empowering women to look for something better in themselves and to understand themselves, right?
Exactly.
And yes. Then this comes a little bit also, like, I bet you work with a lot of like self-confidence in these women, right? Like, how is that experience with them?
Yeah, so a lot of times it's not that we lack the self-confidence, is that we are looking for its meaning in the wrong place. So we're looking for culture, for outside relationships to tell us that we are worthy, to tell us that we are good enough, that we are beautiful, all of these different things. And so we're kind of looking out constantly to see who we are. And so when we're not anchored in that belief in ourselves, it doesn't matter how much someone tells you that you're beautiful, that you're smart, that you're intelligent. There's going to be a part that is disconnected from that being true. So a lot of the empowerment work that is done is to learn how to embrace yourself as you are, to find the beauty as I am,
Mhm.
so that then I can see, because I really feel self-confidence is more of an energy. It's something that you feel, right? Like a vibe. Like
Yeah.
sometimes you see a woman walk in and you can tell like she's in her power, she's radiant, she's magnetic, you want to talk to her. And then there are women that they could be beautiful and very, have it all together, but they're dull. There is no life, or there you're not really, it's not really interesting. Like it doesn't spark a curiosity to get to know, right? And so for me, cultivating that energy is what's really going to give us that feeling of self-empowerment, because we're not looking for it in the external. And when that happens, then we're able to express ourselves, express our work that is true to us, because we're not so concerned about the external, right?
So
So and that's ultimate self-confidence for me, to be able to walk in anywhere and be confident of who you are, have a conversation and show up in a confident way, and people feel that and people trust that. So even with you know with business, and all of those things, people are more open to you, to hearing what you have to say, right? Because there is an aspect of you that's self-assured.
so
It
they
doesn't mean you
feel it.
know it all, yes, but
Mhm.
it's like this exchange of energy that feels light and inviting and good. And so that's for me, that self-confidence really comes from fully embracing who you are. And as women, we have been taught that we're either too much or we're not enough. And most of us are playing those programs not consciously, because sometimes if you ask someone, it's like, no, of course I believe in myself, I have all these diplomas and I have all this achievement. But at the end of the day, internally, if they don't feel that worth, it doesn't translate in energy. It is simply like a wall, like a facade, right? Like a just
Yeah.
pretty paint. And so one of the things I focus on, which I was mentioning to you earlier, is being able to embrace that as women, we have a beautiful, powerful, potent tool, which is our bodies. And and I mean that in the sense that our bodies go through phases every month, right? So it's not just menstruation. We have 4 phases that we go through. And each of those phases, we are releasing different hormones. There's different chemistry happening. And so there's different feelings in our bodies. And now, when we begin, most of us are somewhat disconnected from this. It's kind of like, oh, I'm on my period, and that's as far as we
Yeah, it
know.
feels
We
like in a negative way
in
instead of
a
like,
negative. Exactly. And so that's kind of how we've been conditioned to think of it. But when you start to tune in and see that that's actually an intuitive tool for us that we can cultivate, because certain parts, for example, in the first, we have 4 phases. In the second phase is when we are the most bright and radiant and outgoing, and then there's another phase where we are just like, I call it the time of the dragons, because that's when you're just you know but what and we it's been labeled all the, like, this would be like what we know as PMS, or the time right before we start bleeding. But what we don't know is that that's the time that woman's body is most attuned to no bullshit. It has no filters.
for
So
anything.
then it sees everything as it is. And so there's less patience. So if we know that, then I know that I can be an observer of what's happening in my life, what I'm not okay with, but I'm not going to try and fix it there, because it's going to come from a place of destroy, burn everything down,
Mm.
But if I can wait to the next phase, then it brings me more into a place of groundedness. And I can say, oh, this is what came up, at that week, this is what came up. So I'm going to sit with it now. How do I feel about it now? And then you start building your boundaries, because most of us are we're reactive. We're sort of, we're always like in reaction mode, or we just hold it in and wait until the volcano explodes to express it. So when we learn to work with these phases, we understand that, okay, now is the time for me to socialize and be friendly because I'm at my best. I'm going to have the energy. And then we know when, okay, I need to, not plan so many social events that week, and slow it down and maybe be a little bit more contemplative. So and this every month we have the opportunity.
It's just so amazing because it's true. Like we live with this all our lives and we don't really think about it, or what we were saying, instead of like taking it as like an empowerment situation, we're always like, oh, this and that. But it's just brilliant. Like if you can understand what you were explaining, all your states, then you can be better at your life too. Like what you were saying, like if you're doing business, just do it when you're your best, not when you're dragon.
Yes, now when you're in your dragon state, trying to talk to new people, because and again, it's like that's the beauty of being a woman, is that we have a access to everything. It's a full spectrum of emotion, but when we're not connected from it, we can't access, and it results in frustration, it results in depression, it results in very low self-esteem, because you think that there is something wrong with you. You think that well, everyone's kind of telling me that I'm too much, or and so you start believing those stories. But when you realize that actually the things that people say, for example, menstruation, which is not a lot of people talk about it as actually that being a superpower, because it really is, you start to tune into these other aspects that are more of feminine nature, that can be practiced and give us a more holistic sense of life. And for me, Belen, really that's so important. Like feminine leadership, I really feel that's emerging in our consciousness right now. It's returning to the planet because women, we have had to mimic the workplace like a man. We have had to go out there and create these male personalities that are tough and can get through anything and can do everything. And we're burnt out because we're not designed to work that way. We're designed to have a full experience, and we can do that when we learn to honor these feminine gifts that we have, that we've been disconnected from, or have been forgotten.
Yeah. So what will be like your tips, or what will be the first things that woman or I can do, like to connect more with your feminine power, like to understand all these things? Like what will be my first step or tips to improve it, or like to understand when you're getting more masculine than feminine, so you can, because I'm curious about another thing now that we just talked about that.
Yeah, that's great.
Mix it up. What about the feminine and masculine energy? How does that work? Can we all both have both? What is your thought about that?
Yes, absolutely. We have both, and we have both, and it's like in a relationship that's going on inside of us, and so sometimes we will be one more, we'll favor one more than the other. And typically, for a lot of successful women, it's been the masculine that you favor because that's what's rewarded, right? And then the feminine nature is more seen as like maybe the stay-at-home wife, or like, you're just more calm and all these things. But the thing is remembering that we don't have to choose, because we have access to both. And when they start working together, they're actually even more powerful. So as an example, when I speak of feminine leadership, what I mean is taking that masculine model that is right now and incorporating into it those feminine qualities that are only going to amplify it, such as our intuition, our ability to tune into things before they happen. I mean, how many times, and I don't know, Belen, how many times has it happened to you where you're like, I knew that and I
Yeah,
still did it, you know?
of
But
course.
something simple as that, because we don't honor and acknowledge that we have this power that knows a lot more than just fact and knowledge.
Mhm.
It's an actual radar, like a sonar energy that we have. And, some people call this the aura, right? But like our aura field reads these things. And so when we are working with that, we understand that, we need rest to be in our fullness.
Mhm.
We need times where we're going to be very busy, and that's okay. So we can start to bring a harmony to being in that masculine energy and being in that feminine nature, because that is what keeps us healthy and fulfilled, not just being in one or another, by cultivating that relationship. It's like the inner sacred marriage,
Mhm.
when those two energies merge inside of us.
So what will be
The
coming back
tips.
to my no yeah, tips or yeah, the first action we could take today to start working in ourselves for
Okay,
like
so
discovering the feminine part of us.
yeah, so I would say that the first action that we can take is looking at right now, what is it that it frustrates you about your life? Where would you, if you had a magic wand, what would you change about your life right now? Whether that be the workplace, a relationship, something about yourself, where does that question take you? Because that's a portal into going in and reclaiming the power that you're losing to that challenge. Because that challenge is there for a reason.
Mhm.
And that's what we want to find out. What is this challenge telling me about myself, or teaching me, or trying to redirect me? And that's where we can start. And then obviously, I'm going to share the PDF that I've created for your audience, around how to start working with your cycle. So even realizing what time of the month you are feeling more frustrated or depressed, or any of that, and then finding out, getting curious about what is really going on. Because these, even though these are chemical responses within us, they give us access to something deeper. And
Mm.
so start tracking the cycle, and see, how do I, what is it like for me right before I'm going to start bleeding? Like, what are the things I can't stand? What are my pet peeves? And getting curious with that, because all those things are a portal, a doorway to reclaiming that feminine power that you've given away to that.
Yeah, and we'll have all the links in the email and
Yes,
your website so people can connect with you if they have questions or they're curious about this. Eh,
absolutely.
Is there anything else you will like to add to the conversation?
Well, thank you. My gratitude. Thank you so much for everyone tuning in, and yes, send in questions or just your experience. We'd love to read that and share. What I would, what's in my heart right now to share with your audience is that we're in a time where, there is two realities happening. There is an old reality that is outdated, and there's a new reality that's wanting to emerge. I believe that woman is the bridge for those worlds. I believe that woman has within her the blueprint, the resilience, the strength
Mhm.
to birth forth her gifts to the world that are going to bridge us into this new reality, or into this new way of being. Because it's not like it's another, it's the world that we're in, but the quality of it is going to be very different. And so for any woman and every woman that's listening to this, know that you are a powerful a powerful conduit of divine intelligence, of divine spirit, that if you're listening and tuning into this, looking for that self confidence, there is no greater self confidence than to know yourself and find that God, Goddess, divine being within you and express that to the world, because that's what will heal our reality.
Wow, so powerful,
Thank you.
Anabel. Thank you so much for being here and for all what you have shared.
Thank you. Thank you, Ellen. Thank you for having me
Have
here.
a good one. Bye.